Orbital mechanics were orthodynamically induced, humankind made them dysfunctional. Predictable celestial movement takes on new strategic flexibility when humanity begins to expand its technology to develop the capability to reshape planetary orbits. Humanity's last hope is the creation of the JUMP, a massive spacefaring ark, in an attempt to escape to a new star system, the Elysium Expanse. As a last effort to save all of humanity and salvage what's left from the already dying Earth, the ship is capable of traveling through the jump gates, the only way to travel to another star system, and is now the subject of pursuit by the Kepler Coalition. Play as a commander for the Terran's Day One defense and help them repel the Kepler Supremacy's fleet and save humanity using Protocol Kepler. Faced with the entire 12-strong Autozam fleet heading toward Earth as well as 17 enemy ships, she orders the weaponization of the entire solar system with asteroids and other celestial bodies hurled toward her attackers. The mission causes a large gravitational cascade, which destroys the Coalition fleet but permanently shifts the orbit of all the planets in the solar system. Humanity is spared conquest, but they have seriously altered the nature of the cosmos in the process and have gone from simple observers to makers of the universe itself. The victory comes at the price of changing mankind's place in the universe forever, leaving it uncertain whether they've saved themselves or doomed themselves. Commander Thea Voss sawed the side of her hand across the reinforced viewport of the orbital platform, staring as the muted blue marble of Earth spun serenely beneath them. The scene should have been tranquil, but the shrieking emergency klaxon of the past 6 minutes forbade peace. On the strategic display behind her, 17 red dots danced across the screen like fireflies, all headed their way, the Kepler Coalition, advanced fleet, rolling through the universe with the deliberate, deadly sweep of a mathematical function. "Sir, we have a message coming through from Admiral Hendricks," Lieutenant Marcus Chen reported from the communications station. His voice held the thin edge of tightly leashed panic that had gripped all of the crew of Station Archimedes since the initial enemy ships were detected on their long-range sensors 3 days before. Thea turned away from the window, her ghost reflected in the reinforced transparent aluminum. She was 34 years old, the youngest commanding officer in the Solar Defense Corps, and she had never so much as filed a flight plan in her native gravitational field without ending up somewhere else entirely a few days later. Her peers regarded her as the Newton of the New Age, something she had never much liked. The laws of Newton were elegant but deterministic. Thea had dedicated her career to learning to bend them. "Connect me," she said, walking over to the main command console, where holographic readouts depicted the positions of all known objects of importance within 1,000,000 kilometers of Earth in real time: planets, moons, asteroids, space stations, and ships all cruising along their programmed tracks through the immense nothingness, according to the same gravitational laws that had been in force for billions of years. The weathered features of Admiral Hendricks formed in the projection field, a frown covering his weathered face. "Commander Voss, I'm not going to insult your intelligence. They outnumber us 4 to 1, and the Coalition has been plotting this move for months. They are aware of our defenses, our patrol routes, and our supply chains. This isn't an execution, sir, if we Thea started, but Hendricks silenced her with a quick hand motion. "The Mars grid is already under assault. Luna's been offline since 0400 hours. Face it, Commander, we are all alone out here, and conventional tactics are not going to save us." He hesitated, and his steel gray eyes bore right through the hologram at her. "So I'm authorizing Protocol Kepler." The bridge fell deathly silent save for the drone of life support. Even the emergency klaxon seemed to hesitate, as if the station itself was holding its breath. Thea felt her heart skip a beat. Protocol Kepler was a theoretical last-case scenario that had only existed in classified files and the minds of war planners. "Sir," she spoke cautiously, "Protocol Kepler was never cleared for field usage. The testing phase alone would take the..." "Testing's done, Commander. Dr. Sarah Blackwood and her team have been working around the clock for the last 18 months. The technology is operational." Hendricks leaned forward, lowering his voice. "Thea, we're talking about the ability to change the course of a planet in under 10 minutes. To turn the solar system itself into a weapon." Lieutenant Chen whirled in his chair, his face white. "That's impossible. The energy requirements alone would require the output of every fusion reactor in the solar system." "Yes," Hendricks finished, "which is exactly what we're prepared to commit to this effort." He straightened, his expression hardening. "Commander Voss, you're being reassigned to the Prometheus research vessel. Dr. Blackwood will fill you in on the operational details. This is humanity's last chance." The transmission cut, and stunned silence reigned on the bridge. Thea stared at the empty air where the Admiral's face had been, contemplating the implications. Changing planetary orbits wasn't just a weapon, it was a cosmic violation of everything human beings had believed to be the natural order of the universe. Commander, Chen murmured, if they mean this, we're talking about more than a weapon. We're talking about playing God with the solar system. Thea nodded slowly, already running potential calculations in her mind. The gravitational ripples would propagate throughout the system, move one planet, and the orbits of all the others would inevitably be affected, in a chain reaction that could destabilize the entire solar system. It was madness. It was also brilliant. Just under 2 hours later, Thea stood in the main lab aboard Prometheus, watching Dr. Sarah Blackwood manipulate a holographic model of the solar system. The physicist was younger than Thea had imagined, perhaps barely 30. With the frenetic energy of someone who'd been living on caffeine and mathematical equations for weeks. It's actually quite simple in principle, Blackwood said, her fingers dancing through the hologram to highlight Jupiter's massive bulk. We've developed what we call gravitational field generators devices that can create localized distortions in spacetime. Think of them as artificial gravity wells that can be projected at range. She gestured, and the holographic Jupiter nudged slightly in its orbit. Immediately, other planets began to shift their courses, their elliptical orbits stretching and flexing like rubber bands under tension. The beautiful thing is we don't have to physically push the planets around, Blackwood continued. It's simply a matter of creating gravity fields strong enough to pull them along. It's like placing a marble on a stretched rubber sheet and then reshaping the sheet. Thea watched the display, her tactical mind already processing the implications. How precise is the control? Precise enough to park Mars in Earth's orbit if we needed to, Blackwood replied, her expression mixing excitement with fear. But that's not the plan. This is far more elegant. She manipulated the controls, and suddenly the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter began to shift. Hundreds, thousands of space rocks, some as large as cities, were suddenly in motion, all moving with the synchronicity of a choreographed dance, curving their paths through space toward a single destination. We're going to create a gravitational gauntlet, Blackwood explained. The coalition forces are approaching from the outer system and are scheduled to pass through the asteroid belt in approximately 6 hours. By the time they arrive, that belt won't be where they think it's going to be. A chill ran down Thea's spine. You're going to weaponize the entire asteroid belt. We're going to turn the solar system into the ultimate defensive grid, Blackwood corrected. Every asteroid, every comet, every piece of space debris becomes a potential projectile. Our ships can't match theirs for firepower, but a planet-sized mass can. The ethical implications were staggering. Humanity had always operated under strict protocols not to interfere with the natural orbital mechanics of celestial bodies. This technology represented a fundamental break from that philosophy, transforming humans from observers and participants. In the cosmic dance to choreographers of celestial destruction, Dr. Thea said, her voice measured, what are the long-term consequences? If we disrupt major orbits in the solar system, what happens to the stability of the entire system? Blackwood's expression grew serious. That's what's been keeping me awake at night. The computer models suggest that small, temporary adjustments lasting hours or days would probably be tolerable. The system would eventually return to its natural state, like a pond settling after you've thrown a stone into it. But if we make drastic changes, or if the changes persist for weeks or months, she trailed off, but Thea could read the answer. In the physicist's eyes, the solar system itself could be permanently destabilized. Planets might be ejected from their orbits entirely, and humanity's cradle could become a cosmic shooting gallery. How long do we have to make this work? Thea asked. 5 hours and 43 minutes until the coalition fleet enters the asteroid belt, Blackwood answered. After that, there'll be an open space with a clear path to Earth. This is our only chance to stop them. Thea closed her eyes, letting the weight of the decision settle on her. She thought of Earth, its 7 billion inhabitants completely unaware that their planet was under threat. She thought of the colonies on Mars and the moons of Jupiter, all dependent on the predictable clockwork of orbital mechanics for their very survival. And she thought of the Kepler coalition with their 17 warships, and their absolute certainty that humanity's expansion into the universe was a violation of the natural order. The irony wasn't lost on her. She was about to prove the coalition's worst fears correct by weaponizing the solar system itself. Dr. Blackwood, she said, opening her eyes, make it work. The next 3 hours were a whirlwind of calculations and simulations. Thea found herself immersed in a world of physicists and engineers, speaking a language she could only partially understand in terms of mathematical equations and quantum field theory. But beneath the technical jargon, she could see the beauty of what they were attempting. Dr. James Reeves, the project's lead engineer, had designed a network of generators positioned throughout the solar system. Each device was about the size of a shipping container, but packed with technology capable of warping space-time itself. The generators worked in concert, creating localized gravity wells that could nudge celestial bodies into new orbital paths. Think of it as a game of cosmic billiards, Reeves explained, his fingers dancing across a control interface that resembled a cross between a sculpture and a synthesizer keyboard rather than any conventional military hardware. We're not hitting the balls directly, we're changing the shape of the table the balls are rolling on. They tested the system by attempting to alter the course of a small asteroid designated 2087 Delta. The rock was about the size of a city block, tumbling through the outer reaches of the asteroid belt. By positioning 3 generators at strategic points, they created a localized distortion that pulled the asteroid into a new trajectory. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, gradually, the asteroid began to change course. Its elliptical orbit widened and narrowed, drawing it off its ancient path, sending it careening inward toward the inner system. It's working, Blackwood breathed, her eyes locked on the holographic display. The gravity field is performing as predicted, and the asteroid is responding as expected. But as they watched, other asteroids in the vicinity also began to shift. The gravitational distortion was affecting everything within 1,000,000 kilometers, creating a massive chain reaction throughout the belt. This is the thing to watch out for, Reeves cautioned. Every action has consequences. Push one rock, and you change the orbits of 1,000 others. The system is more interconnected than most people realize. Thea nodded, her mind already calculating the tactical implications. The Coalition fleet was taking a standard approach to the asteroid belt, planning to navigate through the well-charted corridors between the major asteroid clusters. But if they could control the movement of hundreds of asteroids simultaneously, they could create a maze of gravitational chaos that would be nearly impossible to navigate. How many field generators do we have operational? She asked. 47, Reeves replied. We've got them scattered throughout the belt with backup systems in case of equipment failure. I can control the entire network from here, but we can delegate authority to field commanders if necessary, and the power requirements. Every fusion reactor in the system is contributing to the grid, Blackwood said. We're drawing power from Earth, Mars, the Jupiter colonies, even the deep space mining operations. It's the largest coordinated effort in human history in terms of focusing energy toward a single purpose. The scale of the undertaking was staggering. Humanity's entire technological infrastructure had been channeled into one desperate gambit. If it failed, it was over. Commander, came Lieutenant Chen's voice over the com. We're getting reports from the long-range monitoring stations. The Coalition fleet's approach vector is confirmed. They'll be in the asteroid belt in 2 hours and 16 minutes. Thea felt her pulse quicken. Time was running out. What's our operational status, Dr. Blackwood? Field generators at full power. All systems synchronized. We've run the calculations, and the targeting solutions are solid. We're ready to begin the orbital manipulation sequence. Then let's change the solar system. The transformation began subtly. Throughout the asteroid belt gravitational field, generators came online, distorting the fabric of space-time itself. At first, the changes were minimal, slight variations in orbital velocity that would take hours to manifest as noticeable positional shifts. But as more generators activated, the effects began to compound. Asteroids that had followed the same orbital paths for millions of years suddenly found those paths altered. The carefully mapped navigation corridors used to traverse this region of the belt began to shift and change, forming an ever-shifting labyrinth of rock and metal. Coalition fleet maintaining course. Chief Petty Officer Lisa Morales reported from the sensor station. They're not reacting to the orbital changes yet. They probably don't realize what's happening, Thea said. The changes are subtle enough that you'd have to know what to look for to detect them. They won't realize the asteroid belt has been rearranged until they're right in the middle of it. On the holographic display, the solar system resembled a vast clockwork mechanism whose gears were slowly shifting out of alignment. Planets continued their ancient dance around the sun, but now their dance was choreographed by human hands. It was both beautiful and terrifying. Approaching critical threshold, Blackwood announced, her voice tight with concentration. In 30 minutes, We'll need to decide whether to proceed with the final phase of the operation. Once we do, there's no turning back. The final phase involved positioning several large asteroids each, roughly the size of a small moon and collision courses with the projected position of the Coalition fleet. It was a desperate gambit that required split-second timing and near-perfect knowledge of orbital mechanics. What are the risks? Thea asked. If we get it wrong, we could destabilize the entire belt, Reeves admitted. Moving those massive objects, the gravitational interactions become chaotic. We might end up sending asteroids flying in all directions, including toward us, and if we don't act, the Coalition fleet reaches Earth in 6 hours. Blackwood said, "Game over." Thea stood before the holographic display, watching the mesmerizing dance of planets and asteroids, following the same patterns they had for millennia, for billions of years. In a few minutes, she would order them to violate the natural order of the solar system. She would either be humanity's savior or the architect of its destruction. Commander Chen's voice interrupted her thoughts. "I'm receiving a transmission from the Coalition fleet. They're broadcasting on all frequencies. Put it through." The figure that materialized in the holographic display was a tall, lean man in a crisp white uniform. His face was weathered, but his eyes burned with the kind of commanding authority that came from decades of leadership. When he spoke, his voice carried the measured cadence of a man accustomed to being obeyed. "I am Admiral Konstantin Volkov of the Kepler Coalition Defense Force. I am addressing the commanders of the Solar Defense Corps and the citizens of every human settlement." He paused, and his gaze seemed to bore through the hologram directly at her. "We are aware of your attempts to weaponize the natural order of our solar system. This reckless tampering with the laws of celestial mechanics represents precisely the kind of dangerous overreach that the Coalition was founded to prevent." A cold chill ran down Thea's spine. They knew about the operation. "You believe humanity has the right to reshape the cosmos to serve your tactical needs," Volkov continued. "You think nothing of gambling with the stability of the entire solar system to maintain your political grip on human expansion. This is exactly the kind of thinking that destroyed the Centauri expedition. Centauri, the mere mention of it hit like a physical blow. The Alpha Centauri mission had been humanity's first attempt to colonize a star system beyond their own, and it had ended in disaster when the settlers had attempted to terraform a planet by altering its orbit. The resulting gravitational cascade had torn the system apart, killing millions. "We are not here to destroy humanity," Volkov added. "We are here to prevent mankind from destroying itself through its own hubris. Surrender now, and we will help you restore the solar system to its natural state. Continue this madness, and we will stop you by any means necessary." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Thea felt the weight of history pressing down on her shoulders. The Coalition wasn't just the enemy fleet. They were the voice of countless others who believed humanity had gone too far, reached too high, grasped for too much. "Commander," Blackwood whispered, "we need to decide. The gravitational generators are at maximum power. If we're going to implement the final phase, it has to be now." Thea closed her eyes, trying to calculate the consequences. The Coalition was right about one thing: what they were attempting was incredibly dangerous. The computer models predicted that the orbital changes would be temporary, but models were educated guesses. They were tampering with forces that could permanently alter the solar system, but the alternative was surrender. And Thea had seen the Coalition's version of mercy in the outer colonies. They didn't just want to stop humanity's expansion into the universe, they wanted to reverse it, to confine the human race to Earth and a few approved settlements. "Dr. Blackwood," she said, opening her eyes, "initiate the final phase." The next few minutes unfolded in a blur of activity. Gravitational generators throughout the asteroid belt focused their combined energy, bending local spacetime to their will. Massive asteroids, some larger than mountains, began to lumber into motion. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Where there had been a relatively stable asteroid belt, there was now a maelstrom of rock and metal. Asteroids that had been millions of kilometers apart were suddenly on collision courses with each other. The fragile corridors that had allowed safe navigation through the belt were shattered by a rapidly evolving maze of gravitational chaos. "Coalition fleet is responding," Morales announced. "They're breaking formation and attempting to navigate through the disrupted belt." On the tactical display, the 17 red dots scattered, each taking a different panicked course through the storm of asteroids. Some managed to find clear paths, while others were caught in gravity wells that dragged them helplessly toward massive rocks. 3 enemy vessels destroyed, Morales reported. 2 more are heavily damaged and falling. behind the main formation, but the remaining ships were adapting, their commanders displaying the same skill that had made the Coalition fleet feared throughout human space. They were using the gravitational chaos to their advantage, slingshotting around asteroids to gain speed and change direction in unpredictable ways. "They're getting through," Reeves said, his voice tight with frustration. "The disruption is slowing them down, but it's not stopping them." Thea watched the tactical display, seeing the enemy ships weaving through the asteroid storm like dancers. They were good, better than she'd expected. But they were still thinking in terms of conventional orbital mechanics, working with predictable gravitational fields. "Dr. Blackwood," she said, "can we create localized gravity anomalies? Something that appears and disappears without warning?" "You mean temporal gravity wells?" Blackwood's eyes lit up with understanding. "Theoretically, yes, but it would require the field generators to work in perfect coordination. The timing would have to be flawless." "Do it." This new phase of the battle was unlike anything ever fought in human history. It wasn't ship against ship, but human technology against the fundamental forces of the universe. It was no longer Coalition fleet versus Solar Defense Corps, it was humanity versus the solar system itself. Gravitational anomalies would suddenly appear, creating invisible walls that could crush a ship in seconds. Asteroids following predictable orbits would suddenly accelerate or decelerate, turning a navigable path into a constantly shifting obstacle course. For billions of years, the laws of physics had been reliable constants. Suddenly, they had become fluid, unpredictable. 2 more enemy ships destroyed, morale's called out, but the remainder are adapting. They're starting to anticipate our gravitational manipulations. It was true. The Coalition commanders were beginning to recognize the signs that preceded each gravitational shift, the telltale drift of nearby asteroids, the subtle changes in their sensor readings. They were turning the chaotic battlefield into a puzzle, to be solved. "They're about to clear the belt," Reeves warned. "Once they reach open space, we won't have enough gravitational control to stop them." Thea felt the cold grip of command decision, the burden of choices that seemed impossible but had to be made. They had thrown everything they had at the Coalition fleet, bent the laws of physics themselves, and the enemy was still breaking through. In 30 minutes, the surviving ships would be in Earth orbit, with the homeworld defenseless. Commander Blackwood said suddenly, "I have an idea. It's insane, but it might work." Insane is exactly what we need right now. What if we don't just create gravitational anomalies? What if we trigger a controlled gravitational cascade chain reaction that would propagate throughout the inner system? Thea felt her blood turn to ice. "You're talking about destabilizing the orbits of the inner planets, not destabilizing, redirecting. We could create a gravitational wave that would sweep through the inner system, carrying debris and asteroids with it. The Coalition fleet would be caught in a tsunami of matter and energy." The implications were staggering. They wouldn't just be weaponizing the asteroid belt, they'd be weaponizing the entire inner solar system. Mars, Earth, Venus all would feel the gravitational cascade. "What are the risks?" Thea asked. "Total system collapse," Blackwood admitted. "If we get it wrong, we could knock Earth out of its orbit entirely. The planet might be ejected into deep space, or spiral into the sun. Human civilization wouldn't survive either scenario. And if we don't try, the Coalition fleet reaches Earth in 43 minutes. They'll demand unconditional surrender, and if we refuse, they'll sterilize the planet from orbit. Either way, it's the end of human civilization." Thea stared at the holographic display, watching the remaining Coalition ships fighting their way through the asteroid storm. 12 ships remained, battered but functional, as deadly as ever. In less than an hour, they would be in position to dictate terms to the entire human race. She thought of the billions of people on Earth, going about their daily lives unaware that their planet was about to become a battleground. She thought of the colonies on Mars and the moons of Jupiter, all dependent on the predictable orbital mechanics that had governed the solar system for billions of years. And she thought of the future, not just of humanity, but of the cosmos itself. If they succeeded, they would prove that the laws of physics were not sacred, that the universe could be bent to intelligent will. If they failed, they would demonstrate that some forces were beyond even human ingenuity. "Dr. Blackwood," she whispered, "initiate the gravitational cascade." The next few moments stretched into eternity. Throughout the solar system, gravitational field generators adjusted their output, creating a coordinated distortion that rippled outward from the asteroid belt. At first, the effect was subtle, a nudge to Mars's orbit, a slight twist in Venus's path, but as the cascade propagated through the inner system, the effects amplified. The gravitational wave swept through space, gathering asteroids, comets, and space debris in its wake, carrying them along in a massive tide of matter and energy. The Coalition fleet, caught directly in the path of the cascade, found themselves facing not individual asteroids but an entire storm of celestial destruction. "Dear God," Morales whispered, her voice filled with awe and terror. "It's working. The cascade is propagating exactly as predicted." The remaining Coalition ships scattered across the tactical display like leaves in a hurricane. Some tried to flee, but the wave was moving faster than their engines could carry them. Others attempted to fight, firing missiles and energy weapons at the oncoming asteroids, but it was like trying to stop an avalanche with a handful of pebbles. 6 enemy vessels destroyed, Morales reported. 3 more are heavily damaged and falling behind. The remaining ships are trying to outrun the cascade front, but the gravitational cascade was doing something else as well. Throughout the inner system, the orbits of planets and moons began to shift. Mars edged slightly closer to the Sun, while Venus drifted marginally farther away. The changes were minuscule, measured in thousands of kilometers rather than astronomical units, but they were permanent. "Commander," Reeves's voice was strained with concern, "we're detecting an alteration in Earth's orbit. We're seeing a deviation of approximately 0.003% from the predicted elliptical path." Thea felt her heart skip. 0.003% didn't sound like much, but in planetary orbital terms, it meant thousands of kilometers. The change would affect Earth's climate, its seasons, its entire ecosystem. "How long until we can stop the cascade?" she asked. "We can't," Blackwood said, her face pale. "The gravitational wave is self-sustaining now. It will continue propagating outward until it reaches the outer system, affecting the orbits of every planet in the solar system." Slowly, the magnitude of what they had done began to sink in. This wasn't just about winning a battle, they had fundamentally altered the solar system. The clockwork predictability of celestial mechanics that had ruled the cosmos for billions of years was no more, replaced by a new order that bore the unmistakable mark of human will and human technology. "Final Coalition vessel neutralized," Morales announced. "The fleet has been completely destroyed." The bridge crew erupted in cheers, but Thea felt no celebration. They had saved humanity from extinction, but at a cost that would echo through geological time. The solar system would never be the same. "Commander," Chen said, his voice subdued, "we're receiving a transmission from Earth. Admiral Hendricks wants a full report on the operation." "Put him through," Thea said, her voice hoarse. Admiral Hendricks's face appeared in the holographic display, his expression a mixture of relief and concern. "Commander Voss, I'm getting reports that the Coalition fleet has been eliminated. Is that accurate?" "Yes, sir. The gravitational cascade was successful, all enemy vessels have been destroyed, and the cost." Thea took a deep breath. "The orbital dynamics of the inner solar system have been permanently altered. Earth's orbit has shifted by approximately 0.003%. Mars and Venus have also been affected, though the full extent of the changes won't be known for weeks." Hendricks was quiet for a long moment. "You're telling me we've changed the orbit of every planet in the solar system? The cascade is still propagating, sir. By the time it reaches the outer system, everything will have felt some effect. The changes are subtle, but they're permanent." "Jesus Christ," Hendricks breathed. "Do you understand what this means?" "It means humanity has crossed a line we can never uncross," Thea replied. "We've proven that the laws of physics are not inviolable, that intelligence and technology can reshape the universe itself. We've also proven that the Coalition was right about one thing: we're willing to risk everything to continue expanding into the galaxy, and the long-term consequences, unknown, sir. The computer models suggest that the new planetary arrangements will be stable, but we're dealing with forces we don't fully understand. The solar system may eventually settle into a new equilibrium, or the gravitational disturbances could cascade into something more catastrophic." Hendricks closed his eyes, and for a moment he looked every one of his 63 years. "Prepare a full report for me, Commander. Every decision, every calculation, every consequence. This will be studied for generations." "Yes, sir, and Commander. Well done. You saved humanity today, whatever the cost." The transmission ended, leaving Thea alone with her thoughts. Around her, the bridge crew was beginning to relax, the white heat of battle fading, but she knew the real work was just beginning. They had won the battle, but the war between human ambition and the natural order of the universe was far from over. Dr. Blackwood approached her, her face weary but strangely exhilarated. "Commander, I want to thank you. What we accomplished today, It changes everything. We've shown that the realm of possibility is far broader than anyone dared imagine, have we? Thea asked. Or have we simply proven that there are some boundaries that shouldn't be crossed? Every great leap in human history has involved crossing boundaries that seemed impossible, Blackwood said. Fire, agriculture, the wheel, spaceflight, each was a violation of the natural order. Today we took the next step in that evolution. Thea nodded, but she wasn't sure she shared the physicist's optimism. They had prevented humanity's subjugation, but at a price that would be measured in geological time. The solar system would never be the same, and neither would the human race. In the weeks that followed, the full extent of the changes became apparent. Earth's new orbit was slightly cooler, with longer seasons. Mars had warmed slightly, becoming marginally more amenable to terraforming. Venus had shifted into an orbit that might, eventually, make it suitable for human colonization, but the greatest change was in humanity itself. The knowledge that the laws of nature were not immutable, that the universe could be reshaped by intelligence and will, fundamentally altered humanity's perception of its place in the cosmos. They were no longer passengers on a cosmic journey, they were now the drivers. The technology that had made the gravitational cascade possible was refined and improved. Within a year, humanity could create stable artificial gravity wells, alter planetary rotation, even nudge stars into more favorable positions. The universe had become a garden to be tended, a sculpture to be carved, but with great power came great responsibility. The coalition was gone, but their message lived on. There were those who believed humanity had overreached, that the power to reshape the universe was too dangerous to wield. Various natural order terrorist groups formed, seeking to destroy the gravitational field generators and return the solar system to its original state. Thea found herself at the center of these debates, hailed as a hero by some and denounced as a destroyer by others. She had become the face of humanity's transformation from cosmic observers to cosmic architects. The weight of that responsibility nearly broke her. 5 years after the Battle of the Asteroid Belt, she stood once again at the viewport of a space station, watching the distant blue marble of Earth spinning below. But now she knew that the planet's orbit was not the product of billions of years of cosmic evolution. It was the result of human decision, human technology, human will. The universe was no longer a vast clockwork operating according to immutable laws. It had become something far more complex and terrifying, a canvas for human ambition, a playground for human creativity, a reflection of both human beauty and human destructiveness. And as she watched Earth turning in its altered orbit, Thea wondered whether they had saved humanity or doomed it. The answer, she suspected, lay not in the stars but in the choices humanity would make in the years to come. They had proven that the laws of physics were not inviolable, but the laws of human nature remained as mysterious and unpredictable as ever. The universe was theirs to remake, but whether they would use that power wisely or destroy themselves in the process remained to be seen. The only certainty was that there could be no going back. Humanity was no longer an observer of the cosmic dance, they were its choreographers, and the universe would never be the same. In the end, the Battle of the Asteroid Belt had been about more than military victory. It had been about the very essence of humanity itself, the willingness to risk everything, for the chance to transcend the limitations of the natural world. They had won the battle, but the war between human ambition and cosmic order would continue until the end of time itself, and in the cold spaces between the stars. As the laws of physics bent to human will, the universe watched and waited to see what humanity would make of its newfound power.